What we're going to do today is go over this solution, TrinDocs, what it is, and then we're going to show you a part of that, which is the forms, the requisitions area. That's where we're really going to focus today. As you can see, not a lot of slides here, and I don't do the show presentation. I'm just going to click through them. Hopefully you're seeing the slides all right. And you can see there aren't many at all. We want to keep the PowerPoint very brief. We would rather spend time in the software and again, enable you, our viewers here, to ask questions and tailor it and get some specific things that you would like to know. So again, without further ado, I'll dig in. We'll go through the slides, and then we're going to show the presentation, the solution a little bit, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers before it's all done. So thanks again for attending. And again, don't hesitate to hit that chat button at the bottom if you have some questions. So first up is TrinDocs. Why do we exist? We exist very similar reason that TrinSoft exists. At the highest level, it's about helping mid-market companies leverage technology to be more efficient, more effective, more profitable. Specifically on TrinDocs, we really help them increase ROI by doing enterprise content management. Our business, our industry is full of acronyms. Enterprise Content Management, ECM, you might see that acronym out there. It's kind of like ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. It's a fancy way to talk about a content management solution. Software like TrinDocs. Content management is a solution that helps you manage your content, your data, your information, like an electronic file cabinet. If you had paper files and you were to get them into a solution of some kind, like TrinDocs, that would be enterprise content management. So automation, transaction automation, scans, things like that are all in this ECM space. We help companies leverage that kind of software, especially mid-market companies. We help them automate their processes so they can be more efficient and more profitable. And that's really what we do. That's why TrinDocs exists. That's what we live for each day, and what kind of how we spend our days thinking about better ways to process invoices and streamline it. Now, there's big ROI in providing automation to your system. If you think about an organization today and the amount of data entry they might do in the procurement area, the payables or purchasing area of the business, we used and leveraged a study that's out there that talks about valuing how much it costs to process an AP invoice, purchase order to the receipt, to the AP invoice, to the payment. And if you automate those processes, how much can it save you? Now, that study said that to process an invoice typically costs an organization anywhere from $14 to $19 per invoice. And I like to ask this question of a lot of companies that we talk to. Do you know how much it costs your organization? Have you tried to quantify it? If you utilize a solution like TrinDocs, and this doesn't have to be us, any automation solution, if you're able to streamline that process and trim a 10-step workflow, right, or a 15-step process into 5 or 3, you can save, by our calculations, as much, you can see here, as much as $9 per document, right? And that includes things like the electronic file cabinet, capture, the workflow, the integration, so you're not rekeying anything. We're able to demonstrate on the TrinDocs side a true no-touch handling of an AP invoice, right? The vendor emails it and nobody in the organization touches it. And that invoice is automatically retrieved. It's validated, it's verified, it's read, it's matched automatically, mind you, but into the ERP system by the PO and the line-by-line PO receipt lines with all applicable business rules applied. If those rules pass, we insert that document into the ERP system as an approved posted AP invoice, all the while capturing and tracking and logging those steps, the business rules, and each piece of the workflow. So it's a true no touch. If any of those business rules fail, if something goes wrong, we flag it and we then notify somebody, and we put it in what we call a queue, a list, and we say, hey, there's some invoices over here where it didn't match the PO receipt lines, right? Or we weren't able to calculate and apply freight. So this is an example, and it's a high-level example. Our website, TrinDocs.com, has additional examples of the kinds of savings you can recognize. And again, if you're doing 500, 1,000 invoices a month, as you can see, you truly can save $5,000 to $10,000 per month automating some of those processes. So if you're not doing it, even if you don't use TrinDocs, we strongly recommend you take a look at something like that. If you aren't automated and scanning and auto receiving all of your AP invoices today, we really should talk. There's a lot of value in doing that. So what does TrinDocs work? I mean, how does it work? Well, it's real world AP automation that handles your requirements. And I say it that way because there are a lot of solutions out there that will scan invoices, that will automatically take your bill, that will automatically get your invoice from a vendor and link it and get it into the ERP so that your users can look at it and see it, but then typically they're going to have to key it or process the rules. Well, our system will automatically retrieve, automatically register that AP invoice. But then, as I said, we take the next step. We will apply, we'll work with your organization. We have best practice AP business rules that we can certainly share with you. We know the business and that part of processing very well. We can apply your business rules to that AP invoice. And again, go all the way to, let's go look if there was a PO there. Do we have receipt lines in the PO? Line by line, do they match with things like rounding, freight, coding, quantity, decimals, all of these things? If those rules pass, off we go. That's why we worded this the way we did, real world automation, right? I mean, that's what it takes to truly process a PO-based, a multi-line inventory-based AP invoice. Of course, if you have an office bill from your CPA firm or your lawyer that just needs a total and accounts or a couple of accounts, that's very easy to do, and we do that as well. But the difficult ones, the ones that separate us, are the ones where there's multi-lines and there's a lot of business rules involved. And we work with you and can map and can automate your requirements. You see the list there. I match invoice against the purchase order, shows and reports invoices that don't match. We're reporting those business rules. Makes you more efficient, right? Makes you more effective when those processes are automated. All right, 3 parts to our solution today. TrinDocs has really grown. We have TrinDocs, the automation piece. That's what we're kind of talking about a little bit. TrinForms, where we're going to show the TrinForms solution today. TrinForms is for requisitions. That's for the entry level, the creation of a request of a purchase, and then payments. We've even added a payment solution. So if the invoices are in your AP system and they're ready to be paid, if all of the rules were followed and they're okay to pay, we have a payment solution where you don't have to cut checks anymore. You don't have to export ACH files. That vendor will automatically pay your payables for you. No hands needed, no touch, no nothing. So we have 3 elements to our procurement, our purchasing solution today. Here you can see where each of them pay. Now, if you look at that from left to right, you can see what's involved in the procurement workflow, right? Everything from initiating and seeking approval for a purchase, validating that, getting it approved. Then once it's in, we've got the receipt to process. We've got to be sure we're handling the goods, that the purchase, the vendor communication was successful. The vendor did their job, and then we're able to store all that and retrieve it. And then ultimately, once that's good and we verified it and we've done our 3-way match and executed our business rules and our internal controls, it's approved and it's ready to be paid. And you can kind of see where each of the modules in our solution play. You know, P2P, another acronym. There's another acronym for you. That's procurement, procurement to pay. You'll see P2P, that's procurement to pay type solutions. And that's the sample of the life cycle here and how our solution fits. Now, TrinForms, which is going to be the focus of our demonstration today. TrinForms has a couple of different elements to it, right? Submit, workflow, complete. The user creates a requisition. Now, TrinForms is not for warehouse inventory or manufacturing inventory. Inventory purchases should be managed by your inventory system, like material requirements planning or Kanbans or something like that. And it needs to be tightly integrated with ERP. It needs to be tied to the warehouse, to the manufacturing floor, etc. TrinForms is about requisitions for everything else. Everything else. Capital requisitions, capital purchases, CapEx spend and CapEx approval is a big deal. We've got a big project going on with TrinForms right now in that regard. Budgeting. Sometimes you have to have office bills or recurring payments. Sometimes you have to have approvals where you're going to split them. Think about a healthcare organization that might have to allocate costs across departments and cost centers. TrinForms enables that. So TrinForms is for all the users who do requisitions, supplies, supply cabinet. Maybe it's maintenance, right? Maintenance parts or maintenance part supply could be requisitions, CapEx. That's what TrinForms is for. TrinForms enables the requisition. It has workflow with simultaneous approval, and then it has the integration, the ability to actually generate a PO or integrate with your ERP for the PO, or integrate and be a part of TrinDocs for your PO and the automation. So that's what TrinForms is, and that's where it plays. Finally, there's TrinPay. As we mentioned, this is payments, no more check runs, no more ACH file exports, and you can earn rebates on those payments. Once they're in the system, the payment third-party provider, we use a very large organization called Invoice Pay. They charge a fee per payment, but then they provide a rebate. They contact the vendor. You don't think about it again. You know, all that lets our customer focus on one thing, and that's making sure that the payables workflow executed successfully, and that those payments are okay to pay. And we'll know the due date, we know the terms, we know all of that information, and then we don't think about it again, and those payments are made. And they'll even work with you with regards to float and payment and timing and priorities as well, which is really, really nice. So this is how to contact us. Jeremy will be the point of contact for anything on TrinDocs. This is his contact information if you need to reach him, so be sure to jot that down, or of course we'll be happy to send that to you. I'll get it to you afterwards. Okay, that's it for the slide deck. So enough with the PowerPoint. Let's dig into our TrinForms solution. So we're going to log in and out a lot on this, but here it is. This is what TrinForms looks like. So it is browser-based. So I'll kind of start with that. I think I have the TrinDocs website up over here, so I'll close that. This is a browser-based solution. It's hosted, so you're paying a monthly amount per user. It's a very lightweight, very affordable solution. Matter of fact, we recently priced one of our TrinDocs solutions against another large enterprise solution who was 3 times the monthly price of our solution. So we're very affordable for the feature set that we have in the market and for what we can do. All right, so what we're looking at here in TrinForms is the inbox. So the first view on TrinForms is the inbox. You can see I have a couple of additional views up here from my menu at the top in the bar. Okay, I have pending, and we click on each of those. It's hard to see in the screen probably, but you can see that's bold, so it tells you which one is currently selected. I could look at my completed forms, I can search through any forms, or I can create a new one. The inbox are forms that this user, and if I go over to the right of my bar, my ribbon at the top, I can see who my current user is. I'm currently logged in as an administrator. I'm logged into the company ABC, and I'm using the form called a PO. Now, that's a good point for me to pause right here. This solution supports multiple companies, multiple divisions. That's very common today. You might have subsidiaries. You might be able to create or need to create requisitions across different subsidiaries or different entities. We support that. We support all the different users. We have integration with your domain. You don't have to re-log in. You don't have to track separate user IDs for this. And we have different form types. We're focusing on requisitions, but you have the ability to create multiple form types, maybe a personnel request, requisition, maybe your capital requisition is a little bit different than your supplies requisition. You have the ability to do those different form types all within the TrinForms solution. And the ribbon at the top is telling me which one I'm logged into, okay? On the left, we have this little, I think some people refer to that as a hamburger, a little menu icon up there. If you click on that, we can see, because I'm an administrator, I can see all of the setup areas of TrinForms, and they are extensive. So my plan to walk you through this today, first thing we're going to do is we're going to enter a form, and we're going to kind of get a feel for what it's like for an end user. Then I'm going to pause it. I'm going to show you some of the setup things, because again, one of the great differentiators, one of the neat things about TrinForms, the users, the end users have the ability to change all of the different layout, configurations, workflows, approvals, fields, field types, lookups, all of that we put into the power, the hands of the users. And it's all available inside this admin menu. So we'll take a look at that briefly as well. All right, well, to keep it simple, to start out, I'm going to just kind of look at what this is like for a user who needs to submit a basic requisition, okay? Our sample company here, I'm in healthcare, so we've got a lot of cost allocation, multi-line stuff when we request some kind of a purchase or a supplies purchase like this. So to start a new requisition, I simply go up to New Form. I'm going to click New Form. And this is what it looks like. One of the things we really emphasized, and this layout is definable by you, by the user. One of the number one things we emphasized in TrinForms is ease of use. You know, when you're thinking about accounting systems, you're thinking about accountants, right? And these back office users who are really good at accounting systems, and they know how to do data entry, and they know what business rules are, and they know about one-to-many tables and required fields. And they're using those types of systems every day. When you're presenting requisitions for your entire organization, these individuals might not be power users. They might not be strong computer users. So the system needs to be very, very easy to use. And we've emphasized that. First thing I'm going to do is do my vendor name. So I'm just going to start to type, and notice right away, right, we can see a lookup into my vendor file that's linked to my ERP system. And it's an intelligent search, right? The minute I start to type here, it's finding records in this for me. And that lookup, the user can define it, and they can decide what fields are there. They can decide the order for the fields. They can decide how the lookup works. So it's super easy for me to look up vendors. All I do is start to type, and I have a little search icon right next to it to know that that's what that field is. I'm going to pick a vendor there, and once I do and tab off, notice that it fills in basic information for me. Again, all of this defined by the user. Check request. Gosh, I don't even know what that is. I'm going to skip that. We'll talk about that later. I really don't want that field here anymore. That's something that one of my previous users did, and I'd like to get rid of it. Hold that thought. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. I'm going to leave the date blank for now. Notice I've got little asterisks that indicate what fields are required, what fields aren't required. I'm going to click on additional tabs. Notice that I have some tabs. This is a pretty standard data entry type of screen in software today, where I have what I would call a header area here, and I have a lines area down at the bottom. And notice that both my header and my lines has multiple tabs, which can just hold additional fields or additional records. So I'm going to come down and well, there it is. I'm going to go ahead and do supplies, and I'll do 3 supplies at $11 each. Notice the math's being done for me. My sum is being done for me. Super easy to do this. And I'll do a little bit of labor. Got labor on my list there as well. Now that's just from the browser. That's actually not a lookup. And I'll do 5 hours of labor, and that's going to be hours at $50 an hour. So now I've got my total requisition at $283. Now remember, I'm healthcare, so these are unique to me, and I have some additional allocations to do. So I'm going to go out here and do an allocation, and look at this. I have the ability to enter a percentage allocation, and I'm splitting this requisition between these two allocation lines based on a percentage. Very unique, right? Very unique. Again, requisitions, I'm going to charge this, maybe my accounting team, and I could even split this to my accounting team, and I'm going to put some of it to expense, and I'm going to put some of it to capital. There we go, 2 lines. I'll put an attachment in here. I can add attachments as well. And I'll scroll up there and grab my image, and I could even add a comment. There we go. And we add a comment. And I can even make comments whether they're external, whether they would be seen by the vendor or on the hard copies or not. I've got my form entered. It's all set. Now I'm going to submit up at the top my actionable items. What I can do as a user right now on this form is here. I'm going to hit submit, and watch what's going to happen. Now remember, I didn't do the date. So I hit submit. It says, oh, hold on, your required field is not filled out, right? The date field. So good feedback to the user right away on that validation. I can come down here and go ahead and enter my date, come back and submit, and there we go. That form has been submitted. Now, what's happened? Well, in the form that I created, my purchase order, I have defined a workflow. And those workflow steps, the number of approvals, what needs to happen for a requisition to be okay is definable by me, and all definable inside of here. Again, all definable inside of this setup area. But in general, this needs to be approved. So since I'm the admin user and I just submitted it, if I go to my pending list, inbox represent documents I need to work on. So as the admin, I need to work on these documents. Pending are documents that I created, but that somebody else has to approve it. And here you can see the one I just submitted right here, $283. right? Aladdin template, and it is pending approval. I can go look at that document, but because it's now pending approval, no, I can't change it anymore. Right? I can see my comments, I can see my attachments, I can see everything about the document up there. I can go to my little menu at the top and I can see who needs to approve it. So now I can see that Mr. Lincoln needs to approve my document. Okay. I will now log in. We'll change our login there. So I'm going to sign out and let's go see what Mr. Lincoln's up to. When Mr. Lincoln comes in, inbox are documents that he needs to work on. Pending are documents that he created that other people are working on. Notice that this document is active for him to take a step on. When he opens it, and you can see the document, same amount there, right? He can see information about it. He can see who's pending approval, what the steps are, the audit trail, right? If he's an administrator, we have the ability to override as well. And he can approve, reject, and suspend. Mr. Lincoln is simply going to approve the form, and that's it. Really easy, really fast to use this. Notice that it dropped out of his inbox. Why? Because the workflow was designed that once the approval's done, it's not in his inbox anymore. He doesn't need to take an actionable step on it anymore. Now, those approvals, again, are defined by the users, and we can have as many people required to approve a form as needed. If 10 people need to approve it, because maybe I have an approver required for each department, right, or each of those allocation lines, all 10 will receive notification right away, and the system will track. The system is going to track which of those users have approved it and which of those users have not. So notice our approval lines here, right? Notice we're no longer pending approval. Our active step has changed, right? So our status has changed. Our active step is now update GL account. It's no longer pending approval. Our workflow routes this to accounting as the last step, and their job is to update or verify the accounting split. Once they're done, notice that it's not approve, reject anymore. It's submit, save, and cancel. And that finishes our workflow and can then insert this into a PO system. It can print. We have a customer, matter of fact, more than one, using this so that the approved document is the purchase order that's sent to the vendor. And of course, integration with TrinDocs as a module is native. So I'm going really fast, but I wanted you to just get a sense of what it looks like to interact. Multiple users, multiple workflow steps, multiple forms. I could go pick any of my other forms, right, and switch to it. And those forms would look different, right? They'll behave differently. Okay. Now, a couple of things I'm going to come back to. I mentioned this check request, and I said, you know, I don't want that on this main. I don't use that anymore. I'd really like to get rid of that. So what's involved in getting rid of that? Now I'm going to show you some of the admin areas, the setup. Remember, everything about a form, about its workflow, about its steps, about the things that occur on it, all are done through the setup. So I'm going to go into that form type, and here I see my PO. I'm going to edit that purchase order. And here you can see I have the fields, the calculated fields, the tabs, the workflow steps, the settings, all around this form. In this case, I'm going to say I'm going to work on the infrastructure for this form. So I'm going to change it to in development. That stops a user from being able to submit a form of that type. I'm going to go to fields. I'm going to go to check request. I'm going to edit that field. Again, all of this in the hands of the user, real time. The check request field, lots of little stuff in here, right? Lots of things and settings you can set for check request. But the important part for me is what tab should this field be on? And I am going to move it to the optional tab instead of the required tab. Notice that's the two tabs we saw at the top. And you know what? The user, you can have as many as you want. You could have 10 tabs at the top and they'd show up in the list, and then you place your fields on a tab. I'm going to put this onto the optional tab. I'm going to save it. I'm going to go back to my form settings, and I'm going to save this form and say, put it back into production, go back into my inbox, create a new form, and the check request is gone. Just like that. No programming needed, not a line, no coding needed. You don't need to call your consultants, right? The users, the administrators, the people who manage the process, manage the requisitions, have the authority, have the ability to make those types of changes. Notice on my optional tab now, that field is here. the creation of the fields, the field names, even things like this lookup. That's called an extender in our system, and you define that data, where it resides, what fields are made up of it, how to map it. You even decide how to fill in the additional fields like the address of a vendor. Now, I went really quick with that workflow, but what requisitions does is it lets you come in here and simply, quickly allow your entire organization to create requisitions for things like capital spend, miscellaneous supplies, reimbursement, maintenance supplies, right? Things that you want internal controls for, and you want coding, you want controls, you want the ability to have a PO and have some authority, some control over it, some authorization. At the same time, maybe they aren't an ERP user. None of these users have to be ERP users, right? You don't want manufacturing or ERP inventory lines, right? That should come from your ERP system. But anything else, maybe you have SOX compliance around a repeating bill, right? Loan payments or something like that. All of that can be managed in a system like TrinForms. And as we said, you can create and manage as many forms as you want. No limit on forms, no limit on fields, tabs, any of it. So we come to the market with the solution with pre-built forms. So we have, as you see, a PO and a requisition ready to go, and then we can tailor those to fit your unique needs.